After the end of the world, as a food podcast, I was besieged in my dormitory, my hoard was snatched up, and I was pushed out of the dormitory, and ended up in the mouth of the zombies. Living again, I've built a safe fortress of my own, and this time, I'm going to get high on melon seeds and watch them die. The sharp pain from the zombie gnawing on my neck was still spreading, and when I opened my eyes again, I realized that I was lying on my bed with an assortment of snacks around me. I touched my neck and it was intact, no wounds, no blood, no pain. In a flash of lightning, I realized that I was reborn. I sat up with a jerk and looked at the time on my phone, October 7th, 2035. Sure enough, I went back to the month before the zombie outbreak. I grabbed the sparkling water at the table and took a few hard gulps, the sweet peach flavor spreading through my mouth and clearing my head. I want to live. I'm going to live. I got up and looked out the window. The sky was excessively blue and the fallen leaves were floating in the air, a late fall scene. From time to time, students passed by under the dormitory building, and the sounds of their best friends playing drifted to my ears. Everything is so usual and ordinary, but only I know that in a month's time, all this peace and quiet will be shattered. Countless zombies will attack the school, and this place will turn into a hell on earth. I'm going to stock up. I have to stock up. But before I can do that, I have to move out of school. Our school is just a normal second college, and the dormitory building is the old kind. The dormitory door on the first floor is the only security for the entire dormitory. If the zombies broke out, this layer of doors wouldn't be able to withstand a zombie attack. Obviously, staying in a dormitory is not a safe way to go. With me, this is not even a mortal threat. What threatens me is the hordes in my dorm. I'm a food blogger. And before I was a host, I applied for a separate dorm room. The dormitory was supposed to be 6 rooms, and it would have been much emptier if I had lived alone. My hoard is what I keep on my empty bed. Because of a certain sound, most of the girls in our dormitory building know that I'm a little anchor, and they come to the dormitory to buy things directly from me if they need them. In this way, they can see all those things in my dormitory. Because of this, after the zombie outbreak in my previous life, I lived peacefully in the dormitory for a month, and without food the others naturally set their sights on me. Not being stupid, I knew I was being targeted, so I took the dormitory door and held the bed against it, and stacked boxes and boxes of hoarded goods on top of it. By relying on this protection, I made it through another 2 days. But I still underestimated human nature. A hungry man is capable of anything. A couple of girls joined forces with a group from the boys' dormitory, and they pried open the door to my dormitory by means of iron bars and other things, and emptied the crates containing the food again. But that's not enough. There are too many people who haven't stocked up. They tried to move other things, but the group of them were moving too much, and they had already attracted the walkers. To stay alive, they turned their attention to me, no matter how much I begged for mercy. They didn't budge, and in the end, I was pushed out of the dormitory and fed to the zombies, and those hordes of mine were actually cheaper for that group. I clenched my fists at the thought and took a deep breath. This time, I won't take advantage of anyone. I quickly turned on my computer and browsed the rental websites for rental information. I won't be living in a dorm anymore. It's a big target and it's not safe. The best thing to do now is to rent a suite off campus. Zombies move slowly and can't climb buildings, so a house on a high floor is obviously safer. I've been looking at them for a long time and I finally fell in love with a set. It was a small 33-story high-rise, over 120 square feet, with an open-air balcony and a small attic attached. Most importantly, it's away from the city and the location is on the outskirts. This would be inconvenient to get to work and stuff on a normal day. Could be a good place to hide from walkers in a post-apocalyptic world. I stopped looking around and just booked the house. The agent was very quick to say that he would be able to view the property in the afternoon and if it was suitable he would be able to sign the contract on the spot. I answered straight away. With a month to go before the end times, I have a lot of things to do and time to save when I can. After the house was finalized, I carried my bag out the door. On the way, I met Han Lin Lin from the same department. She's my nemesis and has a bad tone when she sees me. Ching Lan, you've been escorting again. I wonder why some people are so cheap and shameless to earn money. You're still a college student. you're a disgrace to college students." My fists clenched a few times as I listened to her cynicism, but in a flash, I calmed down again. "Let it be. It's about to be the end of the world. You can yell all you want." I ignored her and walked around her and out of the school, leaving Han Linlin cursing non-stop in her wake. I went to the mini-mart outside the school gates and bought several woven bags and 5 more suitcases. Afraid it wouldn't be enough, I bought 7 or 8 more vacuum storage bags. After my purchase, I quickly dragged my stuff back to my dorm. It was class time and there weren't many people in the building, so I pulled my suitcase into the dormitory, unlocked the door, and closed the curtains again. After making sure no one was looking, I pulled open my suitcase and started loading things into it one by one. First, there was the self-heating rice, the self-heating pot, the self-heating fondue, the canned fruit. There are several boxes of self-heating rice in other dorms, the kind that come in boxes of 8. I bought the biggest suitcase I could find, but even so, after filling 3 suitcases, there were still 5 boxes of stuff out there. I had no choice but to put it in a knitting bag. Well, after filling all the knitting bags, these are all loaded, I looked at the suitcases on the floor and fretted. This was just the self-heating stuff. There were all sorts of other snacks as well. It was going to be a real chore to move it all. I sighed and sat down to rest. When I had enough rest, I called the previous agent. "Brother, do you have time now? I'd like to rent the house. There seemed to be a meal going on over there." And after a few swallows, I heard him respond, okay, then when are you coming over? I'll be right there." "Now, I'm leaving now. Meet me in front of the neighborhood in half an hour." "Sung," Big Brother answered quickly and hung up. I thought about it and dripped a car, pulling 2 suitcases out the door. On the way out of the dormitory building, I met my hostess aunt downstairs. "Lon, going shopping again?" "Yeah, Auntie, things are almost sold out. No classes today. I'll go stock up." Go. Be safe on the road. You're a good little girl." I said hello to my hostess aunt and pulled my suitcase out of the building. Luckily, I've pulled in my suitcases before, or else my aunt would have to inspect me as I strolled around the dormitory building pulling 2 suitcases. It's a good thing the school doesn't care about that, so I can sell stuff in the dorms. It's not just snacks, but things like manicures, clothes, and the like can be sold in the dorms as well. Do whatever you want as long as there are no safety issues, and the school is still doing a great job on that. When I waited for the car, I told the master to wait a bit and ran back to the dorm to get my stuff twice more, and I didn't leave until I had all that stuff loaded. When I arrived at the place, I asked where the house was located, paid the master double the price, and asked him to help me deliver the boxes upstairs. 10 minutes later, the agent's older brother yo-yoed out of the elevator. He was startled to see what was at the door. "Sis, you're just moving your stuff over here. What's the rush?" "Yes, Big Brother, I'm in a hurry to move, or I wouldn't be in such a hurry." "Okay, let's move fast. You see the house first. Sign the contract if there's no problem." My big brother opened the door. I took a general turn and didn't hesitate to finalize it. Big Brother saw that I was so quick, smiled and said, "Sister looks weak, but the person is very sharp. Then I'll take care of you. I'll cut the rent by 300. Let's go sign the contract now." By the time I signed the contract and got the keys, it was after 3 p.m. I didn't have any classes this afternoon either, so I simply cleaned up the house. The house is fully plumbed and decorated. The beds and sofas and other things are available, so it's kind of a turnkey kind of thing. I wiped the house down briefly and ran upstairs to the small loft. The attic space isn't small, about 60 or 70 square feet, with nothing in it and a big white paint job. I gave it a cursory look and ran to the balcony again. Because it's a penthouse, the balcony on the 33rd floor is fitted with a steel mesh and the balcony has a cistern. I looked at it with joy in my heart. This pool is good. When we get to the end of the world, the water may be cut off. With this pool, I can still catch some rainwater for use. When I had seen the house all over, I went back to school satisfied. 29 days before the end of the world, it was a full day of classes, so I didn't leave the house and took my book to class. In fact, I hated to just skip class, but there was no way to explain it to the instructor. After all, I don't usually miss classes. so it would be too sudden if I were to miss them all of a sudden, after my last class. I packed up and left the school straight away. Tomorrow is the weekend, so I can go over there today and clean up. Plus, there are not enough security measures on the house side that need to be rearranged. By the time I got there by taxi, it was after 8:00 p.m. I pulled 2 suitcases into the neighborhood. The neighborhood's occupancy rate is not high, and now only 10 or so households with lights on, and most of them are low and medium-level households. And only one household with lights on in the upper floors of the 20 or so floors. I solidly memorized the general location and dragged my suitcase through the door. I'd been paralyzed with exhaustion after a long day of classes, so I found a box of self-heating rice from my desk and warmed it up, and brought a bottle of happy water from the fridge. After eating and drinking, I lay down on the couch and lay down, but as soon as I closed my eyes, my mind was the scene of being bitten by a zombie in my previous life, an experience so frightening that I couldn't forget it even if I wanted to. I opened my eyes in resignation and steeled myself to pack my suitcase. What I brought today were some snacks, 20 packets each of chips, potpourri, French fries, jambalaya, Rice Krispies, etc., more than 50 bags of hawthorn rolls, hawthorn slices, sliced bread, sandwich bread and buns. There was also a scattering of various brands of ham sausage, corn sausage, and chicken sausage. These are full of stuff, stuffed into 2 large suitcases. This is just the tip of the iceberg of my little storage unit, which I brought along today. I piled the pile of snacks into the bedroom and booked another appointment online to install windows and doors. The front door of the house had to be upgraded a bit to prevent walkers from crashing through it. I've added a set of bank-grade security blast doors to the entrance that can't be knocked down unless they're blown up with a heavy weapon. The door inside is also fitted with a double metal security door, and with these 2 barriers, no one can hurt me as long as I don't open the door. For security, the attic door was also ordered with a double metal security door, and for the glass throughout the house, I chose one-way see-through glass, which is peep-proof and a little safer, after all. I live alone as a girl, so I still have to be safe. I ended up ordering another set of strong ceiling blackout curtains, so when the zombie outbreak happens, the curtains will be drawn and I'll just live my own little life. That done, I added a few more gadgets that I could use and finally drifted off to sleep. The next day, I woke up to the ringing of my cell phone. Turns out the window and door installer had arrived. I gave my home address and the installer came to the door and froze when he saw it was me. I hastened to explain that I was going to install it for the owner and that I was there to supervise. Only then did the master stop asking more questions and did his work at ease. Because of the extra money out of pocket, the master did an attentive job and had it installed by the afternoon. I inspected the work to my satisfaction, settled the payment and let the master leave. Just after the master left, I hurriedly called the owner of the watering hole and asked for 50 buckets of barrel water. I didn't dare set too much for fear of attracting attention, but in half an hour, the water delivery man came by. I asked master to help me bring the water inside, locked the door and went downstairs. The ones I'm stocking up on right now are nowhere near enough, and I'm going to take advantage of the weekend to go on a shopping spree for the ones in the dorms, and then slowly ship them over. I took a cab directly to the large warehouse-style supermarket in the middle of town and gave the manager the list of items I wanted to use. The manager was smashed dizzy by this big list, and happily took it before asking with interest, "What's the little girl doing buying so many things? Doing purchasing, ah?" I nodded vaguely and said ambiguously, "Yeah, our manager let us order it for the company's anniversary, so this is a pretty good company then." After a quick chat with the manager, I pushed the cart to get something else: 10 large rechargeable batteries, 10 charging cables, 10 large storage batteries, and 3 diesel generators. When I got to the knife section, I bought 3 more bone cutters, 5 more kitchen knives, and 2 smaller fruit knives. I'm not very strong, so it's good to have a weapon at hand, just in case. After getting those, slipping over to the pots and pans section, I grabbed 2 more iron skillets, 2 rice cookers, and in case the gas went out, 3 cassette stoves and some fuel. These filled 2 large shopping carts, and it was still early, so I simply pulled 2 more carts and ran to the daily necessities section. Take 30 sets each of toothpaste and toothbrushes, 10 towels and washcloths each, and 30 water basins, large and small. When we got to the hygiene section, there were 30 bags each of day and night tampons, 50 boxes of pads and tampons, and 50 boxes of sleeping pants. When I saw that there were warm patches, I simply took a box of them, hundreds of them, and filled up my shopping cart before I stopped. It's a good thing this is a warehouse-style supermarket, so it's not too sudden for me to take so much stuff. Just then, the manager said I had everything I wanted, so I asked him to get it all together and finally settle the bill. Looking at a checkout bill of tens of thousands of dollars, I paid it without blinking an eye. Finally, I left my home address and asked the manager to send the stuff over as soon as possible. After a shopping trip, it was noon, so I found a random restaurant on the side of the road and ate, then ran to the wholesale clothing market, probably because of the weekend. Clothing city people, a lot of people. I went straight to the wholesale stalls, did not look at the style. The top pants each took 50 sets, autumn clothes and pants, underwear, and undershirts and so on took 20 sets. When I saw a military coat for sale, I picked up 5 more, in case the weather turned cold and I could use them. Considering the colder weather, I picked up 5 more sets of thick quilts and thick blankets at the quilt store. I wandered through Costume City, decided I'd bought just about enough, paid and left. Just now, I suddenly realized that after the arrival of zombies, the weather will be cold and hot. I ran to the supermarket again to buy electric fans, bushels of ice cooler stickers, etc. Electric fans are silent, and the use of it is not afraid of people to find out. Speaking of quiet, I remembered that I hadn't done the soundproofing in my house yet and was on fire to find a business. By the time I got home from my purchases, it was almost 7 p.m. After running all day, I had long been thirsty, drank a bottle of water, and lay down on the couch to rest. After resting enough, I wiped my face to clear my head and started downstairs to move my stuff to the house, for security reasons. I put my shipping address on the downstairs floors, and I had checked earlier, and no one lived on several floors downstairs. The supermarket manager had boxed up the goods and laid them out one by one, so you couldn't tell what they were from the outside. I looked at the stacked boxes, took a deep breath, and started moving them to the house. Luckily, I've done farm work before and moved a lot when I was doing live broadcasts, so I can handle all this stuff. It took a good 2 hours to move all that stuff, and I piled it all up to the attic door and collapsed to the floor in exhaustion. That's just one purchase, and there's a lot more to buy, so it looks like I'll be tired several more times. 27 days before the end times. It's Sunday, and I didn't go out. After a brief breakfast, I started packing up yesterday's stuff. The shelves I ordered last night also arrived, so I removed the packaging and carried them to the attic. It took some time to get the shelves set up and I put things on them bit by bit. The good thing is that the shelves are of good quality and things sit securely on them. Yesterday's purchase wasn't much, and it only took up about a quarter of the attic when it was all set up. With the attic empty, I set up the buckets of water. With everything set up and the house back to its original state, I called the curtain installer and informed him to come to the house and install it. The master came quickly and arrived in half an hour. When installing the glass, the master could see the difference and laughed. "This glass is fashionable." My heart tightened and I smiled and spoke. "Right, our boss has a good eye and is picky about what he uses." "That's right, they're all in fashion." The master was very chatty. He talked to me about everything and installed the curtains in a casual conversation. When it was loaded, he grinned ear to ear. "Come on, check it out. The shading is guaranteed to be fine." I checked it and found no problems and paid him. Before master left, I pretended to make a casual remark. "It's getting cold, we need to stock up, otherwise it's a pain in the ass to go out and buy things." "Yes, it seems to be very cold this year. It's only October, and it's almost as cold as winter. Go back and tell my daughter-in-law to get some." I smiled and nodded as I walked master out the door. I am the only one who knows anything about the end times. I also want to save more people, but people's hearts are unpredictable, and I don't dare to make a big deal out of it. I can only remind one person to count as one, and as for whether they listen or not, it's none of my business. I have a good heart, but I'm not a saintly mother. I can only look after myself. That night, I went back to my dorm, at 8 o'clock. I'm on the air on time, as usual. There were still people cursing at the pop-ups. Slurs, and it was disturbing to watch. I know that's Han Lin and the others. She can't stand to watch me, and I come over and mess up every time I'm live. Every time you get blocked, you come back with a different number. She cursed for as long as I was on the air. If I hadn't seen her cuss me out, I'd suspect she's my hardcore fan. Luckily, the platform handled it quickly, but the number was blocked in 2 minutes. I said hello to the fans and started eating the podcast. I'm a small anchor and I don't have many followers, less than 100,000 fans. I ate slowly, returning pop-up messages every now and then. It was a good live sale, with over $30,000 in turnover. Most of them were bought by fans, and before I went off the air, I subtly reminded everyone to stock up, and fans laughed and called me a hoarder, and all I could do was laugh. After I got off the air, I cleaned up my dorm room and started getting ready to load my stuff into my suitcase. Just then, the door slammed and I opened it. It was someone from the neighboring dorm, Nin. As soon as Nin saw me, she squeezed right into the dormitory. Lon, I want to buy rice noodles. Quickly, give me 3 boxes. I've been watching you live and I've been craving it. I smiled helplessly at that and took 3 boxes of rice noodles to her. Nin paid the money and hurried back to the dormitory. Another person came to buy something, so I simply put my suitcase away and waited until the sale was over before closing the door. Over the next few days, I moved a few more things in suitcases and my dorm room hoarding became less of a problem. Half a month before the end of the world, the microblogging suddenly popped up the news. Someone in a certain place suspected rabies attack, bitten his own dog. The dog that was bitten had a broken neck and died instantly. The comments say everything. Most people say that you need to be up to date on vaccinations for dog bites, and others say that the guy was crazy. There was constant flirting, and I watched with a sense of relief. That guy wasn't having a rabies attack. He was infected with the zombie virus. The way he bites the dog is exactly the same as the zombie bite. As it turns out, this time of year has already begun. Alarm bells went off in my mind and I accelerated my stockpiling. I made a few more trips to the grocery store and stocked up on things like rice and noodles, dry goods, etc., and canned goods, salami, bacon, etc. I stocked up on 50 pounds of whatever was hearty. I'm alone. How can I save enough to eat? After the stuff was delivered, I had another set of solar power panels installed on the roof of the building. Electricity is also necessary in the end times. In addition to this, I ordered an assortment of vegetable seeds, nutrient soil, and even a fertilizer converter I installed. A week before the end of the world, I finally got my dorm room stuff pretty much moved. I kept those boxes and set them back up as they were. With the beds full, there was a box of rice noodles left, which I had no intention of taking with me, and I hugged the box and went next door. Nin just happened to be there and I handed over the box. The rice noodles are out of date. I can't eat them all, so I'll give them to you. Nin blossomed with joy and then excused herself. It's not good, is it? Just keep it for yourself. I still have it there. After a good deal of persuasion, Nin took it. Before I left, Nin gave me another bag of fruits, saying straight out that it was a return gift. I looked at her smiling face and couldn't help but say, "It looks like it's going to cool down in a couple of days, so you can store something in the dormitory. It's easy to use, hahaha. Well, I stocked up a long time ago. It's so cold, I've bought so many things. I'd rather not go out if I can, or it's freezing outside." That's good. When I came out of Nin's dormitory, I went straight out of the dormitory building. I finally remembered what I was missing, and it was surveillance. The surveillance on the home side was installed a long time ago. Not yet on the dormitory side. I don't dare to directly say that Han Lin and the girls will be the same as in their previous life, but human nature is hard to change, and when the end of the world comes, they will definitely think of me when they run out of food. I also wanted to see what their faces would look like when they saw the empty dormitory. I immediately ordered the battery-operated pinhole camera and plan to install it when it arrives. This camera is small, not easy to spot, and can hear voices, so it's just right for spying on them. The camera arrived quickly. that afternoon, and I hooked it up to my phone, set it up, and found a place to install it. I bought 3, one on the balcony directly across from the dormitory door, one in the doorway, and one in the corner. 3 cameras with high pixels and sufficient batteries will definitely last until the day Han Linlin arrives. 2 days before the end of the world, it happened to be a weekend. I put away my dormitory necessities and quietly locked the door and left. On the way home, I went to my favorite restaurant and packed a meal and went to the grocery store to buy vegetables and fruits, enough to carry 2 large bags. I returned home in the night. I put the veggies and fruits in the fridge to chill and went to the attic to inventory my supplies. After a month of stocking up, the small attic has been stuffed to the gills. Everything is organized by type: rice, flour, oil, water. Snacks, dry goods, canned goods, instant food, etc., etc., etc. I took out my notebook to write down the number of things bit by bit. Vacuum-packed rice 10 kilograms, 50 bags, large bags of flour 25 kilograms, 20 bags, cooking oil 5L, 50 barrels, 30 eggs per plate, 100 plates, 10 kilograms bag of potatoes, 10 bags, pumpkin in 10 kilograms bags, 10 bags, 10 kilograms bag of sweet potatoes, 10 bags each of winter melon, radish and lotus root. There are other hearty assorted veggies that are stocked up with 10 bags. Barrels of water 200 barrels, Coke, Sprite, sparkling water, and 10 cases each of various brands of beverages, 10 boxes each of 8 treasure porridge and silver fungus porridge. Next is the self-heating food, self-heating rice. Those are 50 boxes of each, a box of 8 boxes, 10 cases each of assorted hams, luncheon meats, bacon, salami, etc. In addition, potatoes, chips and other snacks are also 10 boxes. The attic is high enough, the shelves are also large. These things accounted for more than half of the rest of the place. I put a variety of daily necessities, toilet paper rolls, wet toilet paper and so on is also 20 boxes. I kept track of all my hoarding and felt a sense of security in my heart. Of course, it's not just that. I bought anything I could think of and put it in another room, except for the bedroom. The other rooms are piled high with stuff. I was starving after ordering a round of stuff. So I heated up a box of self-heating hot pot and turned on my phone to eat it beautifully. It's the weekend, and most people are out playing, and I was swiping through videos when I suddenly saw a report of a suspected zombie. On the video, a woman is walking normally when a man suddenly runs up behind her. He pounced on the woman, a bite on the neck of the woman struggled violently, but not a moment later there was no movement. At this point, large puddles of blood flowed from under the woman. It happened so fast that no one around them reacted, and when they did, they ran for it. 2 or 3 burly men pulled the man away, and the man nourished his mouth, which was full of blood. Some people screamed for the police, others ran away in fear, and at the end of the video, the woman lying on the ground moved, and in the next instant, the video came to an abrupt end. I took a quick look at the video comments, and the number 1 hot comment was, "Good Lord, this guy is a zombie, isn't he?" It's all ha 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 at the bottom, and apparently people don't take it seriously, but I knew that it was really a walker. The zombies are really here. I lost my appetite all of a sudden. I looked at the video and marked the address, C City, over 100 kilometers from here. My heart tightened. The walkers came earlier this time than in the previous life. In my last life, the mass zombie outbreak was on a Sunday afternoon. The reason why I remember it so well is because I went in and returned to my dorm on Sunday afternoon every time. I hadn't been in my dorm long when the zombies broke out, but it's only Saturday, and the walkers have already shown up. The zombies have been around for a long time. They're just now breaking out on a large scale. I looked at the time on my phone, 8 p.m., without further hesitation. I grabbed a box of stuff and headed out the door. I went down the fire escape to the 28th floor. I've observed it before. There are only 3 households living on the 28th to 33rd floors. I locked the door to the 28th floor fire escape directly and added a doorstop for fear of insecurity. Levels 29 through 33 are also locked. Once it was all done, I locked the 2 security doors of the house, which was a huge relief, unsurprisingly. The zombie outbreak will be in full force tomorrow, and for my safety, the passageway up the stairs must be sealed. Having experienced my previous life, I know better than anyone else that in the post-apocalyptic world, what's scarier than zombies is the human heart. After thinking about it, I got out my little desk lamp and turned off all the lights in the house. I've stocked up on so much stuff. I can't let anyone find out there's someone in this house. That night, I fell into a deep sleep with my headphones on. November 7th, 2035. I woke up freezing. I went to bed early last night and I didn't turn on the air conditioning just to be safe, so it's cold in the house right now. I scowled and pulled another quilt out of the bottom of the bed, and took out my thick pajamas from earlier. After getting dressed, I got up and went to the living room. The blackout curtains had been drawn long ago, so the room was dark. And I fumbled my way to the window by the dim light of my cell phone. It's 10 o'clock in the morning, and I quietly lift a corner of the curtain to look downstairs. There's a lot of people downstairs. It's a day off and there are a lot of people walking downstairs, and there are little kids playing with balance bikes in the neighborhood square. Everything is as usual. Looks like the walkers haven't spread here yet. I'm quite settled in my mind. I watched for a while and started to prepare myself breakfast. I still didn't fire it up and got a box of self-heating rice with boiled beef. The boiled beef tastes delicious. I'm going to have a good meal before the zombies come. Thinking that I can't eat these freely in the future, I opened another box of red meat. The ready-to-eat braised pork heats up quickly, and in just a few minutes, the flavor of the braised pork is wafted out. I can't help but drool at the smell. It smells so good. How in the world can there be such a delicacy as braised pork? My mouth was watering from the red meat, but my hands unconsciously clicked into the communication software. There were quite a few people messaging me, mostly wanting to buy things, so I scanned them and logged out. And Nen, too, messaged me. Lon, you didn't go out, did you? It's not safe out there today, so don't go into the store. Did you hear? There are zombies in Sea City. It's not really the end times, is it? You stay in the dormitory, don't go out. My heart warmed as I read the messages and thought about sending a smiley face back. After posting, I tossed my phone aside and focused on my meal. The boiled beef was spicy, the broth was poured over the rice, soaking the grains of rice, and with a piece of braised pork on the side, the soul screamed yummy. I ate quickly, cleaned up the house, and sat on the couch to brush up on my Twitter feed. As expected, there was a big pop on the Hot 100. A zombie has appeared in Sea City. Several people have been bitten and infected. 3 large exclamation points signaled the level of shock the news had brought. I clicked on it, and it was a video that was exploding with gore. Hot comment 1 wrote, "The end times are coming." Below is the wailing of countless others. The entire page is filled with panic, helplessness. I was so shocked at what I saw that I just turned off Twitter. I took a deep breath. This day, it's still here. The neighborhood was 2 hours after the walkers showed up. At the time of the incident, I was at the window looking at the ground with high-powered binoculars. About the time the news of the approaching zombies spread, there wasn't much downstairs in the neighborhood since late afternoon, but by 2 o'clock, someone was still out of the neighborhood. Using binoculars, I could see clearly that it was a woman in her mid-20s, carrying a bag towards the entrance of the neighborhood. She was wearing headphones, her head bobbing, and by the looks of it, she obviously hadn't seen the news on her phone. She was walking to the entrance of the neighborhood when she was confronted by a ragged man. The man's torso was twisted in a grotesque position, and he still had blood on him, so he must have been infected not long ago. The woman, startled by the man, took 2 steps back and made to walk out again. Just then, the man suddenly jumped up, pounced on the woman in one fell swoop, and bit right down, too far away for me to hear the woman's cries. I might clearly see her struggling. Soon the woman was motionless, and the man rose with satisfaction, advancing again in an eerie position. After about 5 minutes, the woman on the floor moved. She snapped her head up first, her sharp teeth coming right out. Then, as if she had smelled something, she crept 2 steps, got up slowly, and walked toward the outside of the cell. It happened so fast that in just 10 minutes, an infection was complete. Forgive me for being born again, but I still looked shocked. I gulped and continued to watch. while Twitter has been exploding with talk of zombies for a long time, not everyone is going to read it. In the building at the entrance of the neighborhood, people kept coming out, but when they did, they were bitten by the zombies hibernating at the entrance. In half an hour, though, 8 people had already been infected, and with the woman who had started it all. There were at least 10 walkers in the neighborhood. That's a lot of money. With an instant sense of urgency, I got dressed and quietly opened the door to the hallway. This neighborhood is a 2-family house with 1 staircase, and I was the only one living on the 33rd floor, so I carefully descended the stairs and slowly moved to the 28th floor. The building was quiet, so I checked the fire door once again to make sure the chain was intact with the doorstop, and checked the 28th floor surveillance to make sure it was running, and went back home the same way I came. When I got home, I took a flashlight and found the bone cutter I had bought earlier and took 2 more kitchen knives and put them in the entryway. I also took out the mace I bought earlier. When I was ready, I settled down a little. Just then, my cell phone rang suddenly, and I shivered in fear, looking down to see that it was the big brother of the agency from before. All of a sudden I was like an enemy. What's he calling me for at this hour? He knows I'm staying here. My head was full of thoughts and I hesitated before pressing answer. The elder brother's somewhat anxious voice came. "Sis, are you home? You've seen the news, haven't you? If you haven't, don't come. The neighborhood isn't safe anymore." I pursed my lips. "I'm at school." The older brother's tone eased for a moment. That's good. Then you stay in school and don't go out. It's a mess out there. Protect yourself." He droned on and simply hung up. I was so relieved that I sat down on the couch with some weakness in my legs. That's when I realized that someone was at me in the message group, and when I clicked on it, I realized that it was the neighborhood doing a head count. It was said that the incident was sudden and people were told not to go out and to report the number of people at home for follow-up needs. Big Brother should have called because he saw that I was late in replying. Big Brother is a hothead, but then I have to be even more careful. I thought about it and decided that from now on I would no longer use the water from the faucet, and I would use the water I had previously stored for eating and going to the bathroom. I can't use gas anymore either. I'll just forget about it with a cassette stove. I have to be careful for safety's sake. I made it through the first day of the end times peacefully. On the 3rd day of the end times, people kept sending me messages and calling me. I know that these are the people who are looking for me to buy something. I didn't reply to any of them. I don't want to reply. The zombies came suddenly, and everyone was a student, so they didn't stock up on anything other than their daily snack buys. School classes stopped long after the zombies arrived, and everyone stayed in their dorms, consuming snacks faster, unable to leave the school and afraid to go to the cafeteria. The first thing they thought of was me. After the zombie outbreak in my last life, I was approached to buy something at the very beginning, and I didn't do anything about it. They then begged and pleaded with me, but when they saw that I wouldn't budge, they got impatient, cussing me out in front of the dormitory. Any number of nasty things were said, and I still didn't open the door. After 10 days, people started to break down the door, but luckily I had gotten someone to reinforce the dormitory door before for fear of losing my stuff, and they didn't break it down. After all, she was a girl, and as strong as she was, she couldn't get the door made of iron. Every day since then, someone has been banging on the door, and each time they leave in anger, afraid of making a scene. I simply put the bed against the door and blocked the door with the hoard again, and then later, Han Lin came. She first kicked in the door with a few people, and after realizing she couldn't open it, she broke down in the doorway, but in no time, she ran away because a walker had entered the dormitory building. Han Lin and the girls hid for 7 or 8 days and waited until the zombies became fewer before coming back to break down the door. This time, she called on a few people from the boys' dormitory. Several boys came and smashed the door with iron bars and knocked with axes, and it took a day to break it down. Then, there was the time they forced their way into the dorm and not only took over my hoard, but pushed me to feed the walkers. So, this time I ignored none of them, in peace. Everyone may be kind, but when it comes to a crisis of survival, anything can happen. In order to survive, the evil side of human nature comes out. Sure enough, on the 6th day of the end times, the requests on WeChat turned into abuse. Every word is evil. I looked ridiculous and simply deleted the person, out of sight, out of mind. By the 10th day, I received a message from Nin, Lon. Lock your dormitory door and find something to block it. Han Lin has mobilized people in the class group to smash your door. Be safe, I can only help you so much. I looked away without saying a word and opened the class group in passing. I had blocked messages from my class group after the end times came, and now the class group of dozens of people was full of crusaders against me. Han Lin, Qinglong, open the door and share some food with us. We're all classmates. We should help each other. Yeah, you have so much food. Share it with everyone, you can't eat it all. It's Han Lin with a couple of her followers. Usually when they see me, they curse, and now they have the nerve to say they are classmates. Where do they get the face? Further below, it was posted by other students. Qinglong, I'll give you money, double it. Can you sell me some? I need a box of noodles. I'll give you 100. Look at me, I'll give you 200. I want water. Qinglong, Sister Lon, I want bread, a box of bread. Sister Lon, I'm not picky. I'll take whatever you give me. Save the baby. He's been starving for 2 days. A sliver of a plea for help, and I continued to scroll down, and it was yesterday's message. Han Lin, Qinglong, don't play dead. I know you're in the dormitory. Ignoring the knock on the door. You're so cruel. Are you going to watch us starve to death? Qinglong, as long as you sell me something, I'll do anything you want, anything. I want you to die. Are you going to die? I mentally spat as my fingers kept tracing the screen until, well, I saw today's message. Han Lin, Qinglong, you've grown up, you don't answer your phone, you don't answer your WeChat. In that case, don't blame me. Han Lin started encouraging everyone to smash my door, saying that if you smash it open, you'll split what's inside equally. At first, no one agreed. Slowly, 1 or 2 people agreed, and finally, they worked out a plan. Han Lin and a few other girls came to break down my door first, and if they couldn't, then the boys would come over. A dozen people agreed. I looked at the avatars of the people, and they weren't much different from the people who had slammed the door in my last life. In a new life, they still chose to smash the door. In that case, let's smash it. Behind, there are still good things waiting for you. Once I knew they were going to break down the door, I pulled up that camera at the entrance to the dorm, and I got the video onto my computer, cuddling up with my melon and watching it slowly. By mid-afternoon, people began to gather at the door, and I looked over to see that it was a few people from Han Lin. They were holding table legs in their hands and slamming my door one by one. The door was thumped by them and people from the surrounding dormitories poked their heads out to see. The door didn't budge after 5 minutes of slamming. I heard Han Lin cursing, "Bitch, the door's so solid. How long is this going to take? Lin, Qinglong isn't here, is he? You have to break down the door so hard." But there's no response. No, I'm watching her. She didn't go to the store. She must be hiding in the dormitory. This bitch is scared to death. She's got so much stuff, she's probably eating her way through it. I stopped eating my melon when I heard this. Han Lin spied on me. Luckily I dodged people when I left, or I wouldn't have been able to get away. Han Lin's a real pain in the ass. I've got nothing against her. Why is she always targeting me? I couldn't figure it out. I'm not from the city, and I've never crossed paths with Han Lin. I can't imagine what I did to offend her. This man is a mystery. I was still thinking about it when a scream suddenly came from the video. There's a zombie. There's a walker coming in, run. Han Lin. Several people heard threw away the table legs and ran. Banging the door echoed in the hallway. A few minutes later, a figure stood in the doorway, with blood hanging from his clothes. He moved forward little by little, a low growl escaping his lips. It's a zombie, a female zombie. The walker sniffed at my doorway, patted it again, and when it didn't move, turned and went somewhere else. I breathed a sigh of relief. Looks like it's the smell of that stuff coming out. The smell had a deadly attraction to walkers, and my plan worked. In the days that followed, Han Lin didn't come over again. And the only sound on the monitor was the occasional zombie roar, until the day I heard the familiar slamming of the door again. The zombies in the dormitory building should have been lured out, and I saw Han Linlin standing in front of the dormitory door with a few boys. The boys were holding iron bars, axes, and other tools in their hands, and slamming the door one at a time. The axe was so sharp that the iron on the door buckled. It really works. Come on, come on, come on, keep smashing. When the door opens we'll have food. The door slammer became excited and swung his axe with all the force of his hand. The clunking sound echoed throughout the building. I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow as I watched their movements. So much movement. Not afraid of walkers coming over. Hurry up, they're losing it over there. Can you do it? If not, I'll do it. I strained my ears and could faintly hear a few zombie roars. Turns out, it was guarded. The preparation was comprehensive. But even if the door was opened, I was afraid that they would be disappointed. There's nothing to eat in the door. What there is a death wish. I heard the sound of a damaged door lock. It's on, it's on. Several of the men who had slammed the door exclaimed too, followed by the door being kicked in hard. What's that smell? It stinks. Qinglong is dead. Damn, it smells like dead people. Forget about it. Let's get something to eat. Move your stuff. I saw a group of people crowding into the dormitory, and my heart perked up as I turned on the camera pointed at the door. 7 or 8 men crowded into the dormitory at once, and they howled and pounced on the mountain of boxes they saw piled up on the bunks. The next instant, as I had hoped, I heard an exclamation of surprise. How can an empty one be empty? What? The box is empty. I'm a fucking Qinglong. These are all empty. Someone swung all the boxes on the bed to the floor, only to realize they were empty. Some people don't believe me and go under the bed to look for it, but the result is, there's still nothing. He was so angry that he took a crowbar and struck the bed frame, and the sound of banging spread through the dormitory. What should we do? There's nothing to eat. It's over. We're finished. They finally reacted to the fact that there was nothing to eat in the dormitory, unbelieving. Han Linlin strides over to my bed, where she lifts the covers and is greeted by a nest of chicken entrails. The entrails were several kilograms long and just lay there bloody under the covers. Han Linlin screamed, "Oh, shit, cover it up." Someone reacted by tugging at the covers to cover the bloody mess, but it was too late. There were a few wails from the end of the building, and a few people in front of the dormitory panicked. Zombies are coming, go, 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 go. Close the door. The men at the door quickly shut the door, but it had been damaged by them and wouldn't close tightly, leaving a crack. A few people close to the door panicked. Door not closing tightly. Oh, shit, the walker's coming in. Come on, push the door. I can't hold it much longer. 2 or 3 were dead against the door while the remaining few hid in the balcony, half-heartedly trying to help. The 3 men pushed against the door. And there was panic in their eyes when they saw the others move. I don't want to die. You guys have to help me. Help. It's going to bite me. Finally, one of the outermost boys was bitten by a zombie. He tried to shake off the zombie, but the zombie that tasted blood was not something he could break free from, and in a short while, the boy collapsed. The dormitory resounded with rising and falling cries. In a few more minutes, the 2 remaining men couldn't resist and collapsed, leaving a puddle of blood on the doorstep. The already broken door was slammed open by the walkers surrounding the doorway, and I saw the walkers' eyes become red from excitement. It should be that the smell of chicken blood stimulated them, and several zombies pounced on the bed like crazy, grabbing the chicken entrails and stuffing them into their mouths. The scene was so gory that I just averted my eyes, after about 10 minutes. When I looked over again, the walkers had finished eating and they had finally noticed the few people hiding on the balcony. I heard someone sobbing, whimpering. I can't help but shake my head. They, can't live. When I first did, I remodeled the balcony for convenience, specifically to store things, and the sliding balcony doors were removed. Therefore, it was useless for Han Linlin's few people to hide in the balcony because there was no cover there at all. Sure enough, 5 or 6 minutes later, I heard the screams of several people. I couldn't see the scene inside because my back was to the balcony, but by the sound of the voices, I knew they were in a bad way. I clenched my hands together and stared dead at the screen. After a long period of dead silence, there was movement in the frame. First the same walkers from before staggered off the balcony, and slowly, one of the boys who had been hiding on the balcony before stumbled into view. He has blood on his neck and keeps his head down and sniffs around, following the walkers off in front of him. 1, 2, 3, and finally, I saw Han Linlin. Her clothes were stained with blood and she walked wobbly, sniffing the air and lowering her head again as she had done with a few others. Suddenly, she jerked her head up and looked straight into the pinhole camera. I coldly locked eyes with her and couldn't help but yelp at the blood red in her eyes. Grass. My heart was racing, my eyes glued to the screen. It was a good thing she didn't do anything more, looking around the room before slowly leaving the dormitory. Soon, a low growl came from the hallway and the dormitory fell silent. Seeing this, I breathed a long sigh of relief that, at last, they were finally dead. This time, I survived. My eyes watered slightly and I went to the refrigerator with shaking hands to get a bottle of Sprite. The cold liquid went down my throat, but I felt unimpeded, and the boredom of being reborn was swept away. After drinking half a bottle of Sprite, I calmed down. That's when I finally heard my cell phone ring. Looking closer, it was Nen. I didn't answer. The bell rang persistently 3 times before finally falling silent. A beep sounded. Lon Lon, are you in the dormitory? A walker went to your dorm. Are you okay? It looks like Lin Han and the others have been bitten. Lan Lan. I looked at it for a long time, but turned off my cell phone, and didn't send any more messages either. That night, the class group exploded. Someone sent a video to the group. Holy shit, is this Blackie and the gang? Kuriko has become a zombie. There's a woman. No, this is Han Linlin, right? She's a zombie too. Didn't they go to Ching Lan's place for food? How did they become zombies? What about Ching Lan? Why don't you see Ching Lan? Did they find anything to eat? The group was quiet for a few moments at those words. Guess not. They're all zombies. Hey, I'm starving. When will the rescue arrive? I've been eating instant noodles for a week. I'll starve to death if it doesn't come. It's almost time. No power or water outages, so it's not that bad. Rescue should be coming soon. Hang in there. Soon the group bristled, all in prayer. I didn't look at it anymore and quietly retired from the group. To be honest, I don't know when help is coming. It's been a month since the end times broke out, and there were hosts on TV at the very beginning calming people down, telling them not to panic, to stay home and wait for help. Then, slowly, there was no news. I'm not sure what's going on out there, but I do know that there are definitely people working silently to try and save the world. I can't do much but stay home and not give a shit, so I resumed my previous days of laying on my back until I heard movement on the 28th floor. On this day, I had just eaten and was about to take a break when I saw a change in the surveillance previously placed on the 28th floor. Since it's a pinhole camera, I just found a high place to put it, just enough to make sure I could see the personnel movements. For a month, the screen had been empty, and now, there were a few figures. The limitations of the location were such that I could only see dark shadows passing by, not faces. I plugged in my headphones and listened intently. That seems to be a couple of men. Brother, is there anyone else living up there? I don't know, just look at it. Gee, I don't think so. We've been wandering around a lot. There must be no one. There are too few people living in this building. Let's take a look. It's best if there is one. But if there isn't, we won't lose out. Brother is right. Let's go up and take a look. I was instantly alert when I heard this. They're going upstairs. I've installed a doorstop on the 28th floor. They can't push the door open. They'll definitely know that there's someone here. And even, they'll look all the way up. What to do? I got anxious. Can't you push it? Shit, it's locked. I heard a tap on the door. Dull voices rang through the monitor. And then the door was kicked hard twice, with chains and door stoppers. The door naturally won't open. I'll be damned. Is this blocked? There's definitely something up there. Why don't you lock the door? Let's go. I've been starving for days. I'll get my fix. I heard the door to the fire escape kicked in again, and then the cursing grew farther and farther away. When it was completely quiet, I rushed to the window and looked down. This time it was almost night and it was too dark to see clearly. In fact, 2 or 3 days after the zombie outbreak. Not many people were out anymore. After all, everyone has seen the fighting power of the zombies, and no one would think of going to their deaths. However, a month has passed, the relief that was previously said to be coming has been delayed, and most of the people have run out of food in their homes. There are more and more zombies and it's getting colder and colder outside, so if this keeps up, we'll have to starve to death. So, some people started taking risks. I witnessed a man go out the door fully armed, but before he could take a few steps, he was pounced upon by a walker in the shadows. After that, the neighborhood was quiet for days, but after 2 days, someone else went out. This time, he succeeded and brought back quite a few supplies. Then a few more waves made it, but that was a week ago. Another week has gone by and I'm afraid a lot of people have run out of ammunition again. The ones who had just come were probably the same, except that instead of thinking of going out to look for supplies, they had chosen to take their chances in the building. Listening to them, it wasn't hard to tell that it was a couple of punks, so they are a threat to me. I'm going to be more careful. I checked the doors and windows of the house again to make sure they were safe, and then I went to the small attic. A month passed and the consumption of supplies in the small attic was negligible. I ducked inside for an order of jaggery rice noodles, touched my hoard, and went to my bedroom satisfied. From this day on, my area of activity was narrowed down to my bedroom with the small attic. Meals were taken in the small attic and the rest of the time in the bedroom, and even the daily cleaning became scrubbing and no more bathing. It's a good thing it's getting colder and you don't stink. As far as daily defecation goes, I chose to use kitty litter. In short, reduce presents as much as you can. And a couple of the guys from that day didn't come back up for days. Perhaps they were fed, or perhaps something else had happened. I nestle in my house every day, checking out what's going on downstairs when I'm free, and on this day, something creepy happened to me. I watched between the cracks in the curtains as usual, and at some point a drone appeared in front of the window. I flinched in fear, but the drone moved closer, clinging to the window, and then it bobbed up and down, revealing the note on top. I fixed my eyes, jerked back, and fell to the ground. I've been watching you for a long time. In a few short words, I read the sweaty hairs. I'm being observed. Someone knows I'm here. I couldn't help but feel a chill down my back. Who's this guy? How long have you been watching me, friend or foe? I don't know anything about it. In the midst of my thoughts, I faintly heard a tap on the window. I bravely stepped forward, and it was the same drone, only, this time, the note had changed. Can I have your number? I'm a nice guy, great guy. I'm even more afraid to add it. These days, who dares to guarantee that they're good people? I grit my teeth, pull the curtains back and don't respond. Then the drone knocked on the window a few more times, and I stopped paying attention and sulked off to the small attic. I was fidgeting inside. Who's that guy? He said he'd been watching me for a long time. Did he find me after the zombie outbreak, or during the time he moved in? It occurred to me that the windows in the house were all one way, so the man had seen me right after I moved in. Maybe he saw me during the time I was hoarding. The thought of that possibility made me panic. It's not enough that the locked fire door was discovered, but now the hoarding was discovered, and I'm on the receiving end of a lot of shit. What's to be done? I wandered around the attic for a long time, but decided to stay put. As long as I don't leave the house, they can't hurt me. 3 days later, the men came again, and I heard them talking and the sound of chainsaws. It looks like they are planning to saw the door open. Supposedly afraid of attracting walkers, they moved very little, sawing little by little. The door didn't open after a long morning of work. I heard someone curse. Damn, if I know which bastard did this, I'll kill him. A door that's so solidly blocked, there's definitely something there. When I open the door, it's all mine. The breaking of the door became rough, and the sound of banging was extraordinarily clear in the hallway. I heard the rattling of chains and knew the door was almost open to them. I'm not in too much of a hurry. After all, the 28th to 33rd floors were equipped with door stoppers and chains, and the 33rd floor had several of them tied up. Even if they came up, it would take 5 or 6 days, 1 week. Anything can happen. In the late afternoon, the group came back, but it was 6 or 7 o'clock before the door could be broken open. A loud slamming of the door sounded in the hallway and the camera behind the door shook and then went black. It's good to still hear voices, and a fucking doorstop. I'll catch him and kill him. Then there was the sound of stomping up the stairs. Not surprisingly, I heard cursing again. Shit, it's locked again, boss. He's still up there. Come back tomorrow, I'll find him. The sound of cursing faded away, and it appeared to be going downstairs. At night, 10 o'clock, I took the chain and felt my way out the door again. When the fire escape was locked, it was also for safety reasons, thinking to add a barrier to themselves. But I did not expect that someone would touch up so soon. In that case, a chain would not be secure enough. I flashlight made it to the 29th floor. It was already late at night. The hallway was quiet. I carefully slowed down my steps. When I arrived at the place, I gently took out the chain, little by little around the door handle. Soon, I chained a good one, and was about to wind another one when a low voice suddenly sounded behind the door. "Brother, can you bolt a few more?" The sound was muffled through the door panel, and I screamed inwardly at the shock. Ah! Occupied, as in restroom. There's someone behind the door. When did he get here? How did he know I was coming to fortify the door? I didn't have time to think about it, but I heard the man say, "Brother, is there enough chains?" "At least 10. They're a bunch of outlaws. They've got people's lives on their hands. They're from downstairs. They came out a while ago. They killed several families downstairs. They'll do anything for food. I know you're a good man. Please make the door stronger. I'll treat you to dinner when you get out." He stopped talking when he finished, and I was so shaken by his words that I shivered and tied the rest of the chains, and ran upstairs to bring down some thicker ones. Luckily, I bought enough chains to be safe in the first place. I bolted the chains several more times until there were no more gaps in the doorknob. The man behind the door didn't seem to have left yet, and after subtle footsteps, he said, "Thanks. Thank you, brother. Be safe, too." I nodded silently. "We'll all be safe." After chaining up the 29th floor, I went up to the 30th floor and reinforced the door the way I had just done, coming up one floor at a time, and when I got home, it was the wee hours of the morning. I fumbled into the bedroom and gasped on the bed. The doors are much safer when they're reinforced. At least, it's not as easy for those guys to come up. I was too tired to move and fell into a deep sleep. Day 2, the guys are at it again. They went up to the 28th floor and first went to 2 homes to break down the doors, and after failing to break down the doors, they became angry and tried to force the doors to be broken down, when a few zombies suddenly came. A few people fled in terror as the zombie slammed the door on the 28th floor without opening it, and left again in slow motion. The reason I know so much is because someone in the property group posted a message. Turns out, the guys weren't from this building, and after robbing the building they were in, they set their sights on our building. A few of the lower floor tenants are kind-hearted enough to think that if they are given food, they will be fine. Who would have thought that these people had done all the bad things and killed all those families? The group aroused the anger of the people in the building, and the people in the building thought of resisting, and the way to fight back is to attract walkers. Zombies are extraordinarily sensitive to odors, and while the group is upstairs, a few homes on the upper floors join forces to lure the zombies in with the smell of blood. When the zombies heard the commotion of them slamming the door, they would naturally be attracted to it. In this way, the occupants of the 28th floor were saved. Only, this approach didn't last long. With this one, those guys would definitely be on guard, and it definitely wouldn't go so smoothly next time. Apparently, the group thought of this, and people were discussing it in the group. Someone said, "If they want supplies, we'll give them supplies, but we'll have to find a way to make them take the supplies and leave, so they won't dare to come back." It's a good idea, but we need supplies. Let's make do. Those who made it this far are all stocked up. Let's give up a little bit each. Sung, well, let's see what we can do. Let's talk about it. Soon the group was buzzing with ideas. I looked at those active in the group and felt a few moments of relief. Turns out I'm not the only one with a stockpile. That's great. In the afternoon, while the guys weren't here, the group settled into a plan. I never made a sound and hid in the bedroom to observe secretly. I opened the window a crack and could faintly hear voices downstairs. Then I set up my binoculars. There was a pickup truck parked downstairs with a few boxes of stuff, presumably the supplies they'd raised at that moment. After about 20 minutes, the group showed up. I saw someone curiously go up and look at what was on the pickup, and then a smile came over their face. A few others gathered around. I watched as they opened the box and finally got a good look at the contents, which turned out to be meat, marinated red meat and chicken thighs and stuff. It was probably because the meat was so flavorful that someone actually picked up a piece and stuffed it directly into their mouth. The man next to him looked on and reached out to grab it as well. Seeing that the two men were about to fight, someone next to them went up to stop them. They were so noisy that it was hard to hear them, but I could tell that the man who was trying to persuade them to fight was a small leader. He said something and the two men grabbing the meat put it down and lowered their heads. The young leader removed the meat and went to the other boxes, which contained rice and noodles along with mineral water. This time, the little leader was also quiet, not knowing what he was thinking. Just then, something flew through the air. And I fixed my eyes on what seemed, is it a ball of blood? That's right. A drone with a bag of blood hanging from it moved silently to the middle of the pickup truck, and, violently, dumped the bag. The blood-filled bag fell through the air and snapped to the pickup truck. The guys reacted and looked in the direction of the drone, which had already flown away. Just then, a deafening song rang out from the pickup truck. It was so loud I could hear it from upstairs. I was just wondering when a couple walkers came out of the doorway of our building and headed straight for the men. They were terrified and tried to run away when a few more walkers came from the other direction. 7 or 8 zombies came at once, and the guys swung their iron bars towards the zombies, but the zombie couldn't feel the pain. But with a lull in his movements, he ran at them again. Soon, one person was bitten by a walker and let out a scream. The others saw it and ran in panic. But it's already too late. A dozen more walkers came from all sides and they were surrounded. The guys were armed, but they were still small, and in the end, the walkers surrounded them. Half an hour later, the guys left after the walker group. Silence returned to the neighborhood, but I feel that something has changed. The third month of the end times, there are fewer and fewer walkers in the neighborhood. After that incident, people finally reacted to the fact that they didn't have nothing to do. Combining forces to take out those guys shows that unity works. That same day, 4 or 5 people sought out a fallen walker and took it out. The guys were excited and shared some tips on killing walkers in the group. After that, the crowd that had been collapsing for months looked like they had found an outlet and started exterminating the zombies in groups. It turned out to be a great achievement for everyone. It was an instantly uplifting event. The group became message land. Where there are walkers and how many there are, someone will report back. Then the group would come up with a strategy of how many people would go in for the kill and how they would do it, whether they would use sound to lure them away or the smell of blood. After a while, the number of zombies in the neighborhood became significantly smaller. The 4th month of the end of the world, the zombies in the neighborhood completely disappeared. I still open the window. I can hear a lot of people open the window shouting, I know, people are holding back. Another half a month passed before help finally came. It was a Monday, and early in the morning, there were helicopters circling the neighborhood. After several turns, the helicopter dropped off supplies and called out, residents, the state is doing its best to rescue everyone, so please don't panic and wait for help. We will drop off substances for everyone to pick up. The country will not abandon anyone. The helicopter shouted for a while before leaving. I couldn't help but redden my eyes as I looked at the black dot in the distance. After the end of the world, the water and electricity stopped for a while, but after half a month, the water and electricity returned to normal. It's been going on forever, and it's never been broken again. There is still no news, but I know that the country has been trying. The end of the zombies is just a matter of time. The helicopters came back a couple of times and sprayed disinfectant in addition to dropping off supplies. A month later, the helicopter shouted towards everyone, dear residents, the zombie population has been cleared and disinfected, so you can move around the neighborhood without fear. After the helicopter left, there was a slow movement downstairs. At first, there were 2 burly men, hovering in the doorway for a moment before suddenly yelling, no more, no more, the zombies are gone. They roared and ran wildly through the neighborhood. Soon, a number of other people opened their windows, and one after another, people came downstairs. I saw people laughing, people hugging, people crying. Months have gone by and people have really been repressed for too long. The 8th month of the end times. Spring passed quietly. We're still not out of the neighborhood. Moncler Outlet Store. The downstairs green has been converted into a vegetable patch and seasonal vegetables have been planted. The weather was perfect, but in half a month the seedlings grew. The green center is pleasant to look at. A few more days passed and everyone ate the vegetables they had grown, and I, too, ate vegetables I grew myself. A few frames of vegetable seedlings on the balcony are growing vigorously and I get fresh ones every day. 1 year after the end of the world, on the eve of the 11th day of the 11th month, the newscasts that have been off the air for a year are finally on. It began to broadcast the changes that had taken place in various parts of the country over the course of the year. After the zombie outbreak, countless people died and countless people rescued. Social order was paralyzed for a while, but luckily, we all made it through. October 1st day, the new red flag was raised in the square. It's new life and hope. That night, I luxuriated. I cooked fondue. There was too much to stock up on in the first place, mostly vacuumed food, after a year of consumption. Most of the stuff in the small attic went down, but some bacon and sausages were left over. I shook them all and added greens that I grew myself. It's not as flavorful as a hot pot restaurant, but it's a satisfying meal. After a full meal, I sat in front of the window and stared. It's been a year since the end of the world. It should be over soon. That's nice. 3 more months. Near the end of the year, it was finally announced on the news that the last zombie had been killed in another country and the end times. The end. I watched the news and took a long breath. It's finally over. The downstairs had been buzzing with activity for a long time, and I couldn't sit still, so I got dressed and went downstairs as well. It was cold, but the sun was shining. It's been a long time since I've had this much fun. I didn't know most of the people in the neighborhood, and I walked out into the small square and watched everyone rejoice. At that moment, a middle-aged man came over. He looked me up and down and suddenly laughed. "Little girl, you put the things in the elevator, didn't you?" "What?" I was still puzzled when he added, "I know everyone in this neighborhood building, and we all interact. You're the only one I haven't met." I can't imagine that young people nowadays have such vigor. I stopped making excuses and just smiled. The older man nodded in satisfaction and left slowly. I sat for a while longer and a young man sat down next to me and stared straight at me. I turned my head and realized it was an unfamiliar face. Just when I thought he had mistaken me for someone else, he popped out, "I am the owner of the drone." Note. I had a flash of insight, which is I'm the good guy. I'm speechless. I can't believe it's him. I thought it was a pervert. He scratched the back of his head. "Can I add WeChat now?" Me. 1 month later, I got a notice that school was back in session. I pulled 2 suitcases back to school. In front of the school, I saw Nin. It's like she was waiting for me specifically. Lon, over here. "That's great. You're okay." She trotted over to me and hugged me all at once, her voice a little choked. "We're all alive. Thank you, and thank you for your stuff. There's nothing wrong with anyone on our level." I patted her on the back. "I'm glad it's okay. Come on, I've made your bed. I'll share your dormitory this time. By the way, do you still do foodcasts? Can I eat while you're on the air?" I lost my smile. What a foodie. Actions. "You can have as much as you want. As much as you want."